Hmm, let's see. Cloud mica, brightwind ore, granular clay, shade quartz. Wow, someone has really been busy gathering rare minerals. It's interesting to see a display like this in the studio. Let's see, who made oh, Pebbles. I know her. She was the geologist I met last year. Huh. It looks like all of these samples have little tags next to them giving interesting facts about each one. Some of these I can even take home. Wow, that is really neat. Now that I think about it, I haven't gotten a chance to really sit down and speak with Pebbles about geology since, wow, for quite some time. I should do that. I'm sure she's around here somewhere. Perhaps, perhaps I should invite her to the cafe. Ah, good day, my friend. You know, I've been thinking lately, we have people who are miners by profession. They collect all these rare minerals and such, and then usually sell them to craftspeople for gil. And it's certainly a good way to earn money, I won't deny that, but have you ever thought about it beyond its monetary value? For instance, have you looked at certain rocks and thought, well, how did they get there? Or perhaps looked at the large, water-filled holes in Tyrol and thought, did the ground give way here? Why are these sinkholes so large? I realize that might sound strange, but I met a geologist last year, someone with a lot of knowledge about rock formations, volcanoes, and the movements of the planet, and ever since our rather enlightening conversation, these questions have just kind of been swirling in my mind more and more. Since meeting them, I haven't found a good time to ask them to come by the cafe, however. Well, until just recently. Fortunately, my friend Pebbles was kind enough to agree to come and talk with us about the various rock formations and the minerals on our planet. She should be here soon, and I think you'll find what she has to say rather interesting. Pebbles, welcome to Coffee and Carbuncles. How are you today?
Hello, I'm doing pretty good.
Good. I am thrilled to have you here. I will admit, I don't know a lot about geology. I took maybe, let's see, one class in university, and that was about it. So, while I might not be the most versed on the subject, I am well versed in steering a conversation. So, I think that between the two of us, we can still manage a pretty solid chat about geology.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Where are you joining us from today?
Right now, I am based in Massachusetts.
Ah, I am in the Midwest, so a bit of distance between us, just a little. But we actually met last year at Gateway Fate in person. And then I believe you're attending this year as well?
Yeah, I'll be in this year.
Interestingly enough, we were introduced by Ayumi of Lore Lines, who I'm actually doing a panel with this year. So it's really interesting how that whole thing goes. Gateway Fate was just such an interesting experience. Like I met so many people.
Mm-hmm. That was my first time going there too. And I think that was my first convention ever.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Wow. Like no anime conventions or anything as a kiddo?
Nope. I either couldn't afford it or didn't know how to tell my parents that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah, I definitely understand the couldn't afford it part. It's unfortunate, you grow up and you're like, I really want to go and do all this stuff, and then you're like, but I don't have the money for that,
Mm-hmm.
so
I was also holding myself back because I was like, I was a shy kid. I didn't really know like interacting with people, especially on that huge scale about walking through a convention center, and I'd be on my own. So it was just a scary prospect at the time.
oh gosh, yeah, my first convention, I was so overwhelmed.
Hmm.
I mean, it was fun, it was cool, especially seeing like all the cosplayers walking around,
Oh yeah.
but you're like, oh my gosh, it's a flood of people.
Hmm.
So what was Gateway Fate like for you then? I mean, like, were you nervous or were you really enjoying it or?
No, I was mostly excited. And just having a more focused convention on like 14 in general was pretty incredible. And for it being smaller, that was definitely helpful. And knowing people, I had a couple people I knew that were going there, so we got to hang out with them.
It's definitely always better when you can do stuff with friends.
Yeah, for sure.
I could talk about Gateway Fate last year for hours. I mean, it was such a great experience for me, and I'm really hyped for this year. But that will have nothing to do with talking about geology in 14.
A little bit, but yeah.
Unless you're doing a geology panel this year at Gateway Fate, in
I
which
am
case
doing something adjacent. It has been released. We're doing a Studium Science Fair. That's what it's called. So it'll be three people showcasing their areas of study and how it pertains to 14. So I'll be in that talking about volcanoes in 14. We'll have Fruity Snacks talking about fish, and then we'll have Zen talking about birds.
that is awesome.
Yeah, so it'll
Oh
be like
my
a little
gosh.
showcase area. We'll be there and be able to talk about stuff. So yeah, I'm really excited about
Really?
that.
We are what, like only a few minutes into this interview and already breaking news about Gateway Fate
Yeah,
2026. Yes.
sort of. But yeah, that's the
Best
gist of
interview ever.
it. So look forward to that.
Oh my goodness, that is awesome. I cannot wait to see that. Wow.
Mhm.
I've actually had Fruity Snacks on the podcast. So that'll be neat. He's such a chill dude. Like
Yeah,
it's
for
always
sure.
nice to see him. Ah, you know, we've been talking about Gateway Fate and I haven't even asked you the question that I ask all of my guests, which is what are you drinking while we're having this chat?
Uh-huh. Well, I got some decaf coffee from an island off the coast of Maine.
Really? I didn't
Hmm.
know they grew coffee up in the Northeast. Huh.
I don't know if it. I doubt it's grown though. I know it's like processed there. So
Interesting.
I went there for a for a job with my work, and they had a little coffee shop, and I got to buy some. And I'm like, well, this is cool. It's like, when do you ever go on a boat to an island off the coast of Maine? I gotta get their coffee.
If I remember right, you're actually joining me from a work trip today, and I really appreciate you taking time for this interview.
Mhm. Yeah, I just got home yesterday, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't have anything quite as grand as that. I have a nice cup of watermelon juice.
Ooh,
About midsummer, yeah, pretty much about August, I get just the biggest craving for watermelon. It's just such a nice and refreshing summer fruit.
agreed.
Now, before we get into geology, I'd like to know more about you personally. Obviously, you play 14 and you're a fan of geology, thus having you here, the Gateway Fate panel. But are there other things you enjoy besides geology outside of 14?
Uh, Pretty much just other video games. Right now I'm really big into 11. I just started that about a year ago. And it's going strong. Thanks to the 14 raids with the crossover.
Oh, nice. I've been considering playing 11. I keep talking with Chili from Moogle Go Around about it and keep flirting with the idea, and unfortunately I haven't really found time to dive into 11 like I'd like to.
Hmm.
But I mean, I'm a summoner main in 14. 11 has summoner as a class and a ton of summons, so
Yeah.
it's definitely always been there on my radar, but whether or not I'll ever actually have time to play it, unfortunately, it's not looking like that'll be the case
Well,
anytime soon, at least.
I have good news for you. The they're getting an updated free trial next month, and it will be unlimited time. So you have plenty of time to like hop in and out if you want.
I heard that due to like the resurgence in popularity, they're planning quite a few updates for 11 going forward. So
They've been doing monthly updates, yeah.
That'll be really interesting to see. I heard some talk about like maybe a small graphics and UI update, but I don't know if that's actually going to be a thing.
I would love that. At least a server update would be nice.
I've heard that from a few people who play. I don't know about the state of the servers, but I definitely heard that people would like a server update.
Yeah, they've had to close them from congestion. So I know the one I started on is closed to new players. I think about 5 more are closed to new players. So they're kind of just hunkering down and trying to figure out what to do about this resurgence. And like people are staying subscribed. Like people are like they didn't just come in for the crossover raid and leave. Like they're like me, like they're still playing.
My main server on 14 is Adamantoise, so I'm kind of used to our server always being in lockdown.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, like the entire Ether data center is only recently opened up to new people. It was closed for quite a while,
Mm-hmm.
which was unfortunate because I was trying to get some new people into 14 and I kept not being able to play with them.
Yep.
What server are you on?
On 14, I'm on Lamia in a
Oh,
Primal
okay.
DC.
So, is 14 your first encounter with Final Fantasy, or have you played other games in the series?
I started with other games. My first introduction was with 5, which I watched someone play through on stream. And that was incredible. I love the soundtrack. 5's incredible. And then I just kept watching them until I decided to pick one up for myself. And that one was 12. So they started playing 12, and I've been watching them, and I'm like, I would do so many things differently in my playthrough that I want to get it myself. And so I did. And that's one of my favorite games in the series. And then from there, I went in like 6. Like 6 is my favorite as well. And then I found the MMOs, and I'm like, I think I'm ready to start an MMO. And I got into 14.
I'm sure that people who regularly listen to this podcast are sick of hearing this by now, but 5 and 6 are my favorites.
Oh yeah, they're good. So
Ah,
good.
they're so good. Ever since they made predictions that the next 14 expansion would be either like focused on the cold areas around Garlemald, or as it turns out, another cold area that we'll be visiting. I keep hoping that we'll get some type of throwback to the first city from Final Fantasy VI.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure I'm sure somewhere around Garlemald that city probably exists and we just haven't been there yet,
Hmm.
because it would make so much sense considering how it was set up in 6, the current setting of 14. I'm sure it's there somewhere and someday we'll see it.
Hmm.
I would just like that to be, sooner rather than 2 expansions from now.
I'm still waiting on my Figaro Castle. That's what I want to see.
Oh my gosh, that would be so neat.
I got excited when for Dawn Trail because they said, "Oh, Valgamarna," and I'm like, "Oh, it's gonna be 6," and then there was no 6.
Right? Okay, good. I'm not the only one.
Yeah. No.
I mean, I know the second half of Dawn Trail was very 9 focused, but to me it felt like the first half was basically Final Fantasy X.
In a way, yeah.
With Wook Lamont basically being our Yuna, which feels a little strange saying that, but that's kind of the vibe I got from it.
Yeah, I could see that.
So, if I understand this, then it was your enjoyment of Final Fantasy 12 and 6 that made you get into 14.
Yeah, or the series in general. I think 14 for me was just the next game on my list.
So, given your love of geology, do you? I have to ask, and I feel kind of silly asking this. Do you play a minor in 14?
Not explicitly. Like I do, like I have mining up to 100 and all that, but like I don't like. It's not part of the lore or anything.
Okay. Now, I have you on to talk about geology and how we can apply a real world geology to 14. But tell me about geology and you. Like, when did you first become interested in the field?
So I was a dinosaur kid. I love dinosaurs. I wanted to like dig them up and study them and all that. And so I did look into that. I volunteered at dig sites and got to be part of that process. And then going to college, figuring out how to get to like being a paleontologist. And I was told there are basically two paths. You could either go with biology to study or geology to study. And I chose the geology path. But studying geology in college, I'm like, okay, so to be a paleontologist, I basically need to have a thesis, get a PhD, and work at a school my entire life. And I could not do that. I have no idea what specifically I would want to study. Like, it was just more general interest more than anything. And so going through my major, I'm like, I'm a lot more interested in like what's not so much what's in the rocks, like fossil wise, but more about the rocks themselves. And so studying that instead of like fossils and stuff really opened my eyes to like, okay, I really like this. I want to do more with this instead.
So ultimately, what did you end up majoring in?
Geology.
Okay.
I have my bachelor's in geology.
Yeah, one of the issues I've always had with college is on one hand you're told, "Hey, pick a major that it's like a hobby you already have or something you know you'd enjoy." On the other hand, nothing can kill your enjoyment of something faster when you take it from a hobby to having a bunch of set structure and requirements.
Absolutely.
I've always had a big passion for history, but even when I was doing a lot of Japanese history research, which is something that I've been into since like the age of 8, I found myself suddenly hating Japanese history.
Yep.
Because the moment you add a force structure to it and grades and requirements and it stops being a hobby, it really kind of takes a lot of the passion out of your passion project.
Yep.
And now that I'm a bit removed from college, I have found myself, going back to loving Japanese history and going back to enjoying reading a lot more than when I was in college. But I find that I very much want to be able to read and study and write what I want when I want, and the structure of college just really wasn't helpful for that.
Exactly. Yeah. That was like me with art because I draw and do all that. I hate art classes. It just drained all the enjoyment for me, and so I just don't study art at all.
Yeah. It's kind of weird because even like post college, I've actually found myself going back and reading some books that I'm like, oh, right, I read these as part of my college course. And at the same time, I'm like, oh, right, I barely read them as part of my college course.
Right? Oh my god,
And
yeah.
now I'm actually like reading them and enjoying them. And funny enough, retaining more information from them now than while I was attending my university.
Yeah, there's a huge difference between being forced to read something and wanting to read something.
Absolutely. But I actually have an interesting geology fact for you. During my geology course, we actually did dive a bit into paleontology,
Oh yeah.
and we went to a fossil site. And I, on my mantle, actually have a fossilized shark tooth.
Yo, no way.
I was one, I was shocked about how big it was.
Hmm.
But also I was really surprised. My teacher was like, "That's really rare." And I was like, "Is
Wow.
it?" She was like, "Yeah." Because some people don't know this, parts of the American Midwest a long, long time ago were actually completely underwater.
Yep.
And so, depending on where you go, basically like the Missouri area and southeast from there, you can still find a lot of fossils of sea life in spite of how inland people would consider, places like Missouri, Nebraska, etc. to be.
Hmm.
And I remember the first time that I was taken to a dig site, in Missouri, and we were finding fossils and small shells and my shark tooth. I was just like, really? I mean, I was blown away by it
Yep.
because it's one thing to be told, hey, millions of years ago, this entire place was underwater, and you're like, yeah, sure, okay. And then you actually find solid evidence of it. And weirdly enough, it's not even that far down,
No.
which I think is what ended up surprising me the most is that to get to all the fossils, I mean, we basically went to a dig site where we went to the side of a highway that went through a small hill because
Yep.
they, blasted out the middle of the hill, but looking at the hill, it wasn't even that big. And like I said, to get to the fossils, we didn't actually dig that far.
No, road cuts are the best places ever. You ever just drive by the side of the road and just look at a cliff that they had to dig into, and there is so much you can pick out of it if you're looking for the right things. It is insane.
The layers of different colored rock you see are on one hand very beautiful, and on the other hand you're just kind of standing there in awe going, wow, so it really is. I mean, it's basically, this is going to sound weird, but this is sort of how my brain processes it. It's essentially like the Earth version of rings on a tree.
Hmm.
Like you really do get a solid sense of all of the changes that have happened over time.
That's a pretty good
And
way of putting it, actually.
is it? I
Yeah.
always feel kind of weird thinking of it that way.
I mean, based on, like, it makes sense, because although geology is, like, on a much bigger time scale than a tree, but that's pretty much the same idea, the evidence is there. You can see how the layers grow and the different layers signal changes in the rock type.
It's actually kind of funny. When I was thinking of this interview and what to ask you, I was like, I should ask if she plans on doing a geology panel at Gateway Fate this year. And that was like the big question I had in my head to ask you. And then it turns out, oh, hey, you are.
Well, in a sense, I would love to do like an actual other side panel, not just like a exhibition.
I mean, it'd be really neat to see. And if we have a fourth year of Gateway Fate, which I know it's kind of up in the air at the moment based on turnout this year, but it'd definitely be something to consider for year 4.
I would absolutely go for a geology panel if there's another year.
I'm really hoping there is because, like I said, I know they said it depends on turnout, but we've had 2 years of Gateway Fate so far. This will be year 3, and every year I have a blast.
Yeah.
So would you like to say what you were doing last year at Gateway Fate? Because I have this rock here in my bookcase.
I mean, that's just what I do. If I know a name I recognize from the 14 community, I'll be like, hey, here's a rock.
So last year at Gateway Fate, I did get a rock from you, and I also got an explanation of what it was. And I thought that was really interesting because that's how we met is, like I said, I was introduced to you through Ayumi,
Hmm.
and you were like, here's this rock, let me tell you about it. And then we ended up having a discussion about various rocks and minerals, and I was like, eventually, I want this person on my podcast because while I don't know a lot about geology myself, I think it's really interesting to meet people who have a passion for science.
Hmm.
And we've discussed a little bit, mostly last year at Gateway Fate, about how we can apply geology to Final Fantasy XIV. And so in part 2 of this interview, I would like to discuss what you found in regards to applying geology to the world of 14, as well as how well the devs have done when it comes to making their world realistic. So, if you'll join me for part 2, and you as well, dear listener, we will talk all about geology in Final Fantasy XIV.
Absolutely. I have some interesting things to share. I've thought about this a lot. Yeah, the conclusions are interesting.
So, Pebbles and I'll see you there. All right, so a solid 10 minutes of Pebbles and I mutually nerding out about how adorable the Pokemon Carbink is later. We are back for part 2 of this interview.
All right.
And when you think about it, Carbink is the perfect mascot for this podcast if only this was Pokemon based, because I love Carbuncles and Pebbles loves Geology. And I mean, just look at the adorable little Carbink.
Hell yeah.
And Pebbles, you had a favorite Pokemon that is not Carbink, unfortunately.
No, it is not. My favorite Pokemon is Beldum.
Which, nothing wrong with that.
I just think it's funny. I was like, of all the things, it's this little guy.
Fair.
Although it does have some connection to rocks. I mean, my favorite character is Steven Stone, so... And his favorite Pokemon is Beldum, so of course it's going to be mine as well.
Now, I wanted to ask in part 1, and I should have, but we're here now, and that's what matters. You go by Pebbles, and your character is named Pebbles in 14, and is that due to your love of geology, or is that just kind of a fun coincidence?
Yeah, no, that comes from it. The very deep iceberg is that it originates from Fire Emblem. Fire Emblem Warriors. There's an item called Frederick's Pebbles. And I took it from
Really?
that. Yep.
Huh.
Frederick from Awakening is one of my favorite characters, and he clears the path of pebbles, and he collects them, and that's adorable.
That is adorable. Now, do you RP as a geologist in 14?
No, I don't do much RP in general. I've tried, the best I can do is like pantomime and like emotes, like custom emotes, but dialogue is beyond me. I don't know iffy with that.
You know, that is completely fine. RP is not for everyone, though if you ever want to try getting into it, I consider myself a very good guide if you'd ever like to try it.
Yeah, I'm talking to the right person.
Pressure free, I promise.
Yep.
All right, so this is the part that you've been waiting for, I've been waiting for, and we're both really excited, and hopefully, dear listener, you're excited as well. We are going to get into geology in Final Fantasy XIV. We are taking a real-world science, we are applying it to this video game we all play, but before we do, I want to make sure we're all on the same page. Pebbles, how would you define geology? What is geology, and what is the definition we should be keeping in mind as we enter this conversation?
Geology is the study of rocks and the Earth, how certain rocks are existing on Earth. I think that is the most succinct definition I can give.
I would also add, and their change over time.
And their change, absolutely. Deep time and all that. From before the formation of the Earth to present day and all those processes, how they interact with each other and form the crust and beyond that we know today.
And for those that may have a difficult time visualizing this as we get into it, the best way you can think about the Earth's crust, and this goes back to food, is I like to think of it as basically a giant rock lasagna. It is layer on layer upon layer, with some layers actually repeating. But I mean, I realize that's a very, very simple way to look at it.
It is absolutely.
But gosh, I mean, without going into a full university course about it, I think that's a good way to put it going forward. So you said that we can actually apply quite a bit of real world geology knowledge to Final Fantasy XIV, and you wanted to discuss that. So I'm going to go ahead and the platform's all yours. What are some solid examples of geology as a science applied to Eorzea?
Alrighty. Well, the first thing I usually look at is, does it even exist? Can we even apply this study to a world like Aetheris? And the first thing, at least I noticed about the map, I mean, you look at it, it's like kind of laid out like the Earth we know today. You know, you have Tyrol as the Americas, you got Eorzea, it's like European and Far East, well, the Eastern cultures. And so, if those are so like apparent in the world map, then that should mean we can apply a geologic map to the world of Aetheris based on the Earth. So when I tried that, all it did was give me more questions.
I suppose I should open with asking, do you feel like the devs have done a good job using geology principles in their world design? Like, is any of that noticeable to you?
The very, very short answer is no.
No.
I am disappointed.
Oh,
No,
wow.
you look at all the things that like they go into. You know, fishing is incredibly inspiring. Like, they go so much into depth with the fishing mechanics and how it applies to real world fish in the game. I'm like, okay, cool. Can you do that with geology? And yeah, it's not looking promising.
Do tell.
Going into it, first of all, the basis of the world geology map is plate tectonics, which is that the crust is split into several pieces, and they all move against each other in different ways. And since the continents on Eorzea, I mean on Aetheris, sort of match the ones on Earth, the map should look the same, but it's not exact, and like that's okay. Like, for example, you're familiar with the Ring of Fire.
Yes.
They have that boundary pretty well on Urkopacha, all those mountains that you see. That's like what's it called? I want to say it's the Andes Mountains that they correlate to. So you can see that on the side pretty nicely. Also, what is that? Thavnair is like the cultural equivalent to India, but you see Thavnair is an island. Can you And the way India was formed is that it moved north and crashed into the Asia continent and made the Himalayas. So where are those mountains north of Thavnair?
Is it possible that eventually Thavnair is going to move north and crash into the continent?
It could be possible. Although the other thing about that is that the timeline for the formation of Aetheris is very small. I think we only know that it goes back, was it 12,000 years to the ancient times? Since the sun's
I'm afraid I don't know the timeline very
Yeah,
well.
I think it's around that. But you know, the Earth is 4.6 billion years old. That's a lot more than 12,000. There is not much that can change on Earth in 12,000 years, except maybe like the shape of a coastline or the existence of a volcano in the middle of the ocean. Speaking of volcanoes, how many volcanoes are there in on Aetheris? Because there aren't many. Not as many as there are on Earth, at least. Because with the thing with the Ring of Fire, there's like thousands of volcanoes around that boundary. And I think in 14 we only know of one, which is Hell's Lid.
Off the top of my head, there is a volcano in north of Limsa and there is one in the Ruby Sea, and those are the only two I know of.
Exactly.
There might I think there might be a volcano, possibly a dormant one, around.
There's Labyrinthos.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So that would make three, but that might be about it. I'm pretty sure I'm not sure I'd call it a volcano. I mean, I'm sure there's volcanic activity around Garlemald because you have all of those like underground caves and gas pockets and what have you, where they're drawing gas from. So there may be more volcanoes there that are dormant.
Yeah, there's not really any delineated like plate boundaries, especially the ones that you are more apparent, like volcanic chains or mountain chains.
True.
So what's up with that?
I mean, even the biggest boundary that comes to mind is is a wall made by the Garleans, so it's artificial.
Exactly. Another thing that's missing are earthquakes. I think there's only like one or two instances of like NPCs mentioning earthquakes in their area, where there should be way more happening, especially along these boundaries.
You know, I never thought about it, but that's a good point. Usually, if there is some type of like tectonic or volcanic activity, it's usually chalked up to either Ascians or Titan.
Mm-hmm.
It's not usually just an inherent part of the world.
Exactly, and that I think that's a huge oversight.
I mean, even when you look at things like large waves, it's always just, oh, Leviathan is
Right.
causing problems. Hmm. I didn't think about that until now. That's actually a good point. I mean, we have rain, we have snow, we have like basic weather stuff, but in terms of geological movement, we don't really have much going on.
No, we don't.
Huh.
That got me thinking about like how this place is actually formed and like what it's made of. Because on Earth you got the layers of the Earth, you got your crust, mantle, core, and what we know from 14 is that they say there you have the ethereal sea and the mother crystal in place of those. So which one is it? Or can they both exist?
Well, the answer is obviously hollow earth theory. Solved.
No, wrong. I can't accept that.
But that is a good point. Because especially since, you know, in 14 we really there's not much of a boundary intentionally between like the physical and the spiritual. It seems like from what we've gathered, the deeper you go into the earth, you basically just end up in Palace of the Dead.
Yeah.
I mean, so far in three different places, we've seen that if you go under the surface, you do have some like underground volcanic pockets and what have you. And then underneath that, it seems to be basically like this Greco-Roman underworld.
There's also the thing of the anti-tower and the Atioscope.
Which I always assume kind of exist in their own little like pocket dimensions.
Sure. But they are physical locations.
That's true. Hmm.
Another piece of evidence too in the ether font dungeon, which is ether spilling out of the ground. What would that be called? Wouldn't it be lava coming out? But there are also places that spew lava, like Hell's Lid and Somal. So does what's going on here? What is the how is Aetheris formed?
Now all I can imagine is that underneath the surface there are just like a bunch of pockets of lava and then also a bunch of pockets of ether, and it's like here we have red lava and here we have blue lava.
Right.
Which also I assume if the two meet there's probably some type of like explosion. Because that's a lot of energy meeting at once. Yikes. That is a good question. I mean, Because as far as we know, it seems like we have three competing what's under the ground. I mean, I guess my assumption would be that furthest down would be lava, and then it's possible that above that, between like a natural core and the crust, and then the surface, like somewhere in there, you would have these big pockets of ether, like basically just big, giant blue gas pockets under the surface.
That could
Um,
be.
that'd be my best guess because, like you said, we've seen both, and so we have to assume that both exist. But at the same time, I mean, the short, easy answer is to go, well, it's a magical world. Who cares? La di da magic.
Exactly. That's no fun.
It's not. And so that's why we have to take real world geology and try to apply it to this fictional world as best we can, at least, which leads to all this theory crafting. Yeah, my guess is that there is a Earth type core, and that's where we get magma and volcanoes, and then occasionally you just have these big pockets of blue energy, basically,
That was what I was going for at first, for sure.
not too far below the surface. Ceruleum, that's the word I'm looking
Yeah,
for. Gosh. Okay, it's been escaping me all interview. I'm sorry.
that's all good. Oh, that's a separate thing, though.
That is.
So there's a key to all this that I discovered, and it boils down to how we're told it works with ether and elements, and how those interact with each other. It's all in the description of igneous rock that 14 gives, which is this stone has been exposed to fire aspected energies for many a long year. And igneous rock is formed from hardened magma or lava. If that were the case in this world, it would have said that.
So here's a question then. Is it possible that, hmm, I wonder if, like, the rejoinings and stuff that Atheris has gone through, if it would end up being a nightmare for geologists.
Yes, like me.
Because I imagine that's probably, like, that had to have substantial impact. I mean, we have areas with a ton of floating rocks in them, and we're told that that's from basically way too much ether impacting the area.
Mm-hmm.
So that's interesting then, because again we go back to magic shenanigans and we take what we know about real world geology and go, well, so much for that.
Yep, it's all magical rocks. End of story.
Magical rocks impacted by other magic.
Yeah, I cannot accept that.
So here's what I wonder next then is we have a minor class in 14.
Mhm.
Um, do you find that there are a lot of solid, like, one-to-one comparisons of the stuff that miners can find in 14 to stuff in the real world? And does the location of some of these make sense? Or does it seem like they've taken a pretty scattershot approach to, like, what you can find where in regards to miner?
Uh, sort of. That's one of the very time consuming and tricky things that I haven't really looked into yet. Like I made a database of the mining log based on where it is located in the game. I've not yet looked into well the specific, like, especially the gemstones, because those would tell you a lot about how they were formed and what kind of rocks resulted in those. So that's a big project.
Why is that? Forgive me, I don't know a lot about geology, but does the location of certain gems really tell you that much?
Well, certain gems are formed in certain rocks. Let's see if I can find an example. Uh, let's go with garnet. 'Cause garnet is a rock that's formed in metamorphic rocks, so rocks that are compressed and stretched and moved around over time. And they're from the original rocks that would be compressed to form garnets would be granite, which is igneous. So it was formed deep underground and would be changed so much that the garnets would appear. So we can know that when we find garnet in the game, let's see if I can find where exactly, because I have the game pulled up now. Okay, raw garnet is found in eastern Lenosha by Costa del Sol. So you would have to speculate that either there is the metamorphic rock that makes garnet there, or it came from the rock that formed somewhere else and was deposited in sedimentary rock on Bloodshore. So I guess there are two ways to go around it, or two interpretations. And from what I've seen, there's not enough evidence in the game to make that make sense.
So, as someone who's studied geology, I guess what changes would you make to 14 to make it make more sense from a geology perspective?
Oh boy. I would have things connect more. Trying to think about how to describe that. It's like you would expect to find sandstone on the beach where there's sand. What if you find a sandstone somewhere else? Like in the middle, like on top of a mountain. That's interesting. Because there would have to be a process to lift that that rock to the top of a mountain. And I want to see that evidence.
And obviously, more volcanoes.
Volcanoes. More uh word of mouth observations. More just generally more observations about rocks in the game. Just be like, hey, look at this cliff. There's stuff in this cliff. Isn't that cool? I'd say yes, that is really cool. Let's learn more about it.
Do you feel that the minor job quests don't really do a sufficient job with that?
I think they focus on different things. Like they're more about mining as an industry rather than the type of stuff that you find.
You know, it's funny because when you say something like that, it makes me think, so really what we need are students in the studium who are more focused on geology. And then I thought, oh, hey, you're literally doing a presentation with that theme this year.
Yeah, pretty much. In a way, mostly highlighting specific things.
So, are there any like weird instances you found in 14 in regards to geology, or things that you're just like that doesn't make as much sense as I'd like it to beyond what we've talked about?
Mostly just the connection with elemental ether.
What do you
It's
mean?
like the description of igneous rock was. It does not mention magma at all. It just mentions that it was exposed to fire aspected ether. Like, so it could just happen anywhere. You know, the fluctuation of elemental ether changes. I just read this morning. I was looking through my Encyclopedia Eorzea's. Uh, the the volcano where Charlian is. It used to be active before the sixth calamity, and then afterwards, the volcanoes just stopped spewing because the ethereal balance in the fire ether got overwhelmed by the water ether. That doesn't happen on Earth. You can't just turn off a volcano. So it's fundamentally different, and that makes my job so much harder because now I have to be an etherologist as well.
So, let's say that there were geologists in Final Fantasy XIV, as a study, as a profession. So then they could end up hypothetically having a heck of a time with their job because you could have two places that are not that far apart that could actually end up having very different layers just based on, like, for instance, was there some type of energy outbreak here, or some type of battle, or some mage that just decided to basically lose their stuff.
Exactly. It would be a whole different study. So geology as we know it on Earth just does not exist in 14. Isn't that great?
I mean, on one hand, it makes sense because it kind of goes back to this is a fictional world, and why are you trying to apply real world science to it? But on the other hand, it's exactly because it's a fictional world that we're trying to apply real world science to it.
Exactly. So we can
It's
understand it better.
as I've talked about before on here, it reminds me of the quote for the love of the game.
Yep.
That's what it comes down to is like, hey, we know about this real world science and we know that obviously this is a fictional world, but it's still fun to apply it and try and make it make sense.
Hmm. There's a lot of rule of cool in this game.
You know, you are not the first person I've heard that from.
Yep.
Now, I do have a theory about the world of 14. Keep in mind, my geology experience is one class back in university for a semester, so if this sounds horribly wrong, bear with me.
Yep.
I think that the reason that we don't see a lot of tectonic shift, the reason we don't see a lot of new islands popping up, new volcanoes, earthquakes, etc., is because I think that a lot of the continental drift and world shaping happened pre-sundering. And so upon the sundering and everything getting split up, one, I think that explains how geologically young Aetheris feels to us. But I also think that might be why, for instance, a lot of geography on the reflections is the same on the source, because I think that with the ancients and the way they talk, the original version of Aetheris was quite old. And
Hmm.
so I think that that's when you had time for all that development, drift, world shaping, and then the sundering happened, and basically our history and our timeline in regards to geology starts from there. And so I think that's why we don't have as much shift going on. But that's just kind of my theory about it.
That would make sense to me as well. And then therein lies the other problem. We don't know anything about ancient Aetheris.
We know more about what happened in the skies above Aetheris
Yeah,
than we know about the planet itself.
exactly.
And that is very unfortunate.
It's very frustrating, yeah. And it makes sense to have like the world or the source stagnate after it's been sundered.
The problem is that we can't even really know to what degree it's stagnated. I mean, we can assume it's a lot, but also just given that our history in 14 post sundering seems like a relatively short timeline compared to real world Earth, we're not really able to measure or make those kind of comparisons, unfortunately.
Exactly.
So, I mean, we don't even know, like, hey, have any new islands popped up? Or when we do find out about islands, there's usually, again, that whole rule of cool thing where it's like, oh, well, it might have been there and just, shrouded by magic the entire time.
Hmm.
So who knows how old it really is. And so I can see that maybe I wonder if like the lack of active volcanoes, earthquakes, etc. is maybe why you don't see much talk about geology in 14. Is maybe the world is too, I guess for lack of a better term, still for something like that?
I would say that is think about Shadowbringers for a second and the flood of light. What did that do to the ether of that place? Like it made it stagnant.
Right.
That's what light does in this world, and darkness is chaos. So when Hydaelyn becomes the center of the star, she's light. She makes Aetherid stagnant.
And not just stagnant. I mean, with stagnation of the ether also comes stagnation of the planet, and so maybe that is why we don't see a lot of things like tectonic activity.
Exactly. And even the base is like, it's called a star. The Theris is called a star, it's not a planet.
It's 1/14th. Well, no, more than that now, but originally post sundering, like basically 1/14th of a planet.
Yeah.
So I think we might have solved the mystery. I don't want to pat myself too much on the back here, but I think that may be why geology is not such a big thing in Eorzea or in
Mhm.
Aetheris as a whole, is because there just isn't that much going on to necessitate it.
Yeah. Isn't that a great conclusion to come to? Let's talk about geology in 14. Oh wait, we can't. It doesn't exist.
Well, I mean, we can. There are still aspects of it. For instance, obviously miners exist. Obviously, you have deposits of minerals in areas, and so there is a level of geology there, just not nearly as advanced or active as the real world.
Exactly, and not as much as I would want to see in the game. Someday I'll get it. Someday there'll be a geology game out there for me, but it's not this one.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
R.I.P. Geology in
Yep.
14.
Yeah, rip geology. But I do. Okay, there is one place that does it really well though, and I would love to talk about that.
Go ahead.
Yuctel in Dawn Trail is perfect. Because first of all, they dump on you cenotes. Those are very nice geological features, and I'm so glad they name dropped them. It's the giant holes in the ground filled with water, and it helps that this place is based off the Americas, as Yuctel would line up with the Yucatan Peninsula, and that is very inundated with these cenotes.
So how do these form?
They form when the ground gives out. It's a specific type of rock called limestone, and it dissolves very easily in water. And so when water goes through them, it'll make caverns. And those caverns will gradually get bigger and bigger until the ground can't hold, and it'll give in and make this big old hole in the ground.
I am familiar with how easily limestone gives way to water, but that that is actually my first time encountering those. I didn't know much about them until we got there, and I
Mhm.
was like, "Oh, hey, there are these big holes full of water."
Yep. It's basically sinkholes. Like if you
Mm.
live in an area that's prone to sinkholes, that's the type of ground that we're working with here. And they get the texture right as well. Like you go down the cliffs into the bottom part of Yoctel. These look like limestone cliffs. They got the blockiness, the square fractures in them, the layers, the color. It's all very, very nice.
So, as a fan of geology and also 14, are there any other areas like that? Places that, if someone wanted to see some really interesting and real world relatable geological structures, you'd recommend?
Uh, yeah, there's one. It's kind of funny. Uh, you're familiar with Arm Vale?
Yeah.
Well, that's a volcanic area. There is a volcano in Antarctica, Mount Erebus, that spews little particles of gold. If you use the rule of cool and turn that up to 10, you get gold lung.
I didn't know it's possible for a volcano to spew gold.
Hmm.
How is that possible?
Uh, it's all in the chemistry of the lava.
Because I'm familiar with obsidian coming from volcanic rock,
Yeah.
or being volcanic rock, and I'm familiar with volcanoes basically spewing a lot of poisonous gas, but
Yes.
I didn't know gold was possible.
On very select few. I think in space, there's also crazy things that come out of volcanoes. I think there's one that rains diamonds or something. I don't know for sure, but there's just wild stuff like that.
That is something that I want to point out that throughout the course of this interview, for those that have done galactic exploration and are like, I wonder why they're not talking about that. Because galactic exploration and the planets we go to are the pretty much living example of this looks really neat and makes no sense because magic. So that is
Yeah,
why we are not getting into that, and we are focusing specifically on the planet that our characters tend to call home.
planetary geology is also a completely different thing. It is a massive area of study that I did not look into. I don't think I could, to be honest. But yeah, that's a whole different beast. There's crazy stuff that can happen out in space.
Oh gosh, and how.
Yep.
I don't I don't know if you've done a lot of the cosmic exploration stuff, but there are some really interesting planets that we've been to now.
I've just stopped in for a couple hours at a time. I haven't really done much.
I would love to hear your thoughts like in DMs when you get to some of the planets because spoiler not wanting to drop any spoilers here, but they definitely just took all of real world geology and just threw it right out the window.
Oh goodness.
They look neat. They're very cool and very
Oh, yeah,
interesting. But I would definitely love to get your thoughts on them later.
absolutely.
I think that we've I hate to say this, but for what we expected to initially be a talk about geology and like geophysics, I feel like we covered it well, and I agree that it is a little bit of a drag to come to the conclusion
You
that
know?
it doesn't exist.
Yeah, you know. But that's science.
I was
Sometimes
about to say.
the hypothesis you want to find just can't happen, and you write that, and that's okay. That's how it works.
But let's say that people disagreed with us, have their own theories, have their own examples of geology in Final Fantasy XIV that they want to talk about. Would you be okay with people reaching out to you on Bluesky or Discord?
Absolutely. I want to hear thoughts because the best thing we can do is talk to each other and exchange ideas. Even if we lambast each other, that's still discussion and figuring out what is going on in this world. I would love to hear about it.
So, for any of you who are fans of geology or have your own takes, thoughts, etc., feel free to not only drop a comment, but also I'm going to put a link to Pebbles Bluesky in the show notes. And I know that Pebbles would love to hear from you.
Yes, please.
There has been talk of, you know, maybe like a small geology discussion group. Also, Gateway Fate 2026, a month and a half from now. Well, roughly about 2 months from now. Some in October.
Yep.
In October.
Go to Gateway Fate. Make sure we get a second year or another year,
Fourth year,
fourth year.
because this year is year 3. Now, our unfortunate geology conclusion aside, you have been nice enough to spend the afternoon chatting with me, and we have talked quite a bit about the myriad of questions I have in regards to geology, both IRL and in 14. I won't lie, throughout the course of this conversation, I felt a bit smooth brained, but
It's all good.
because I'm over here like, I didn't know volcanoes could spew gold. Like, you can't see it, but I was all wide eyed.
Oh, yeah.
But I all that is to say that you have been a wonderful guest and you've answered my questions. So this is the part where I ask, do you have any questions for me? Because I like to give all my guests a chance to ask me questions at the end of the interview.
Well, that's a really good question. I'm totally blanking right now. No, I guess not. Sorry.
No, that's fine. In that case, can I ask you 2 more questions?
Sure.
First off, what is your favorite area in Final Fantasy XIV?
Ishgard.
Really?
It's just gorgeous, and I love snowy areas. And it's Pebble's home.
Nice. Really, she's a Scardian.
Hmm.
Nice. And I suppose my other question is there has there ever been an area in 14 where, due to your knowledge of geology and such, that you've gone to and you're just like, this makes absolutely no sense. Why is this here?
Urkopacha.
Why is that?
Uh, Warcore Zormor. I. It looked to me. I don't know if you've heard of Devil's Tower.
I have not.
It's basically a giant. It used to be a volcano. It's a volcanic vent, and it's that's just sticking out of the ground, and it is made up of like columns of rock that are like hexagonal columns. And I thought that's what uh the Worker Lardor. No, not that one. The dungeon. Uh, Worker Zormor would be. But going into that dungeon, I see no hexagonal shapes in the rocks whatsoever, and that was very disappointing.
And so, along with hexagonal shapes, is there anything else that you would have added to make that more realistic then?
I think that's pretty much it. The only thing that bothered me.
All right. Well, we now open the floor to any discussions that my dear listeners might have. If you guys have any thoughts, feel free to drop a comment. I always show my comments on my YouTube videos, my Spotify, all that to my guests. And a good amount of the time they tend to respond. If you'd like to talk to Pebbles more directly, the best option is Bluesky. Or if you feel that you are a bit too nervous for that, you can always contact me and I will gladly ask Pebbles a question on your behalf or give her any geology feedback you might have. And with all of that being said, we do again look forward to if you'll be joining us at Gateway Fate this year. And
Please.
Pebbles, thank you so much for joining me here today.
Yeah, thanks. This was fun.
I look forward to seeing you in October.
Absolutely. Come to Studium Science Fair.
You heard it here. Come to the Studium Science Fair. Fruity Snacks will be there. Pebbles will be there. And there will even be. Are you guys cosplaying now that I think about it?
I will be cosplaying.
Will you? Really?
I will.
Like
For a
the
day.
studium attire?
No. No, it has
Oh.
nothing to do with 14, actually. I'm
Oh.
cosplaying my favorite 11 character.
Oh. I thought you were going to say you'll be cosplaying as a rock.
I could do that too.
Go around with a Titan mask?
That'd be hilarious.
That would be honestly, I would be both impressed and a little startled, especially if you suddenly like walked up behind me.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, Titan jump scare.
The Primals plays in the background.
Oh my gosh, that would be epic. I'd probably like yelp and jump to the ceiling, but that would be epic.
Oh yeah.
All right. Well, have a good day, Pebbles, and I will see you in October.
Have a good one.
Bye. Talking with Pebbles is always interesting. I feel like every time I speak with her, I just come up with more and more questions. And she even admits that a lot of the time her research just ends up doing the same. Science is fascinating in that way. We end up with considerably more questions than answers, and it keeps driving us forward. I mean, I suppose that's really the very basis of scientific research, isn't it? After all, if we had all the answers, then we'd probably just get bored and move on to something else. I know you probably have your own thoughts, and she'd certainly love to hear them. Any insights or ideas are always welcome. Sorry, I feel like I might have rambled on a bit more than I planned to today. Anyway, I'm sure by now you're ready to go off on your next adventure. So, with all that being said, please stay safe in your travels, and remember, when you need a place to relax, to get away from the world for a while, this cafe will be here, with warm coffee and wonderful guests. So until next time, take care.